Welcome everyone to Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. Now, today on the show, in introducing my guest, I'll do something I haven't done in over 70 episodes of Political Paradigm. I'll read out the rich biography of my guest. Now, she is the winner of the National Human Rights Award 2019. She holds a PhD from Nigeria, LLM London, LLB Nigeria, BL Diploma Peace and Conflict Resolution Uppsala. She's a versatile legal scholar recognized as a leading authority in the field of international human rights, especially on the rights of women and children in Africa. She's a former Dean of Law at the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria. She currently is the head of department for the Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, UNN. She's a member, recently constituted United Nations Civil Society Advisory Board on Prevention of Sexual Exploitation and Abuse. She's a member, Body of Benchers, Nigeria, and also a member of the Governing Council of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. She was appointed in 2008 as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children. She was also appointed in December 2013 by the UN Secretary General as a member of the 5-person Board of Trustees UN Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking. She is a recipient of the prestigious British Chevening Scholarship in 1995 and a grantee of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation's Funds for Leadership Development. She has also received several national and international awards, including being conferred with a Nigerian Government National Honor of the Officer of the Order of the Niger, OON, in 2006 by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Now, I'll need half the show just to conclude her biography, so I'll just stop here. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Joy Ezilo is my guest. Welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you, Terry.
I haven't had to...
I think I have to delete some that have completed the assignment, including at the Council of Advanced Legal Studies. I've completed my tenure there, and also at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs.
You know, like I said, I had to stop halfway, so I don't exhaust the entire show introducing you are reading your biography. But I'm curious, how have you been able to do so much within, I would say, a short time frame, because you don't look that old to me. But how have you been able to do that, especially as a woman, considering this unfavorable climate for Nigerian women?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think it's, a lot of resilience, hard work, and then also be lucky. I call it a journey from local to global. From local, because I go back to think about why I went into reading law. I just, when my mother was widowed, I saw what she went through, and I started asking questions, and we were living in a city where my father passed away, and we were forced to stay in the village for 2 months, and we couldn't go back to the city. And I said, what's going on? And they said, yeah, as a woman, you were supposed to mourn in this way. And I'm talking about 1981, so you can imagine. Even if you were a Christian, in those days of very black dress. And I said, is that what women go through? I watched her being a first daughter, waking up to, I had to take care of my other siblings, to cry, to show that you're mourning. And I just made up my mind, I'm going to study law and I'm going to defend, women who are in this situation, because I just couldn't believe the difference. But again, just like you said, you have to work maybe 10 times as hard as the man to get to where you are. So I don't take anything for granted. I studied hard, I worked hard, I came on top of my class, I did everything, that I supposed to do to make sure, and I was very focused. Trying to pursue my purpose of living. But above all, in service of humanity, for me, is quite defining of the values that I cherish, to serve humanity through my training, and especially my privileged position as a lawyer, as a law professor, as a senior advocate of Nigeria. And I've done this work, like you rightly said, around the world, by being appointed UN Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking globally. And for 6 years, I traversed every corner of the world, organizing workshops, having a country visit, reporting to United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, and also the UN General Assembly in New York. I finished that task also. I was also representing Africa on the UN Secretary General Constituted Board and several that you've mentioned, and that other assignment have also finished. But again, I think my journey, I believe in blending theory and activism. So even as a scholar, I call myself an activist scholar and even feminist because I believe that any scholarship that does not lead to social transformation is not useful to the society. So if I'm a lawyer and a law teacher, I'm able to take on pro bono cases, I'm able to defend others, and as a human rights defender, and I'm able to embark on a type of scholarship that will impact on life. I was just telling someone earlier on in a Zoom conference I was participating in New York that I started teaching women, children, and the law in 1997. I started teaching, in 1993 at the Faculty of Law, and in 2019 I received a long service award, Taslim Elias, for reserved for law professors who have taught for many years, and that was 2019. I was 25. That I've taught for 25 years and are professors of law. So, and I was telling the story how I started this course and navigating my space. Initially, when I wanted it to be just women's law, they said, no, carry children, and duality of women. So we had to include children. I said, okay, illiterate as well. But we were bargaining for a space, and we needed to have that particular focus on women's right, to be able to understand the place of a woman under the law, and then also for children, and then put that in perspective. And since that 1997, this course is such a favorite, even at the University of Nigeria. Now we teach, of course, human rights.
And this work covers Africa, not just Nigeria.
Yeah, it covers Africa. I mean, in terms of my other work around the world, actually.
With regard to protecting the rights or fighting for the rights of women, because I see that a large chunk
global,
of your work is women and children.
Women and Africa.
Well, how successful would you say that you've been? How successful would you say you've been in fighting for the rights of women and children, particularly in Nigeria? And maybe you could compare that to perhaps the bottlenecks you face here and outside the country.
I think one other thing also you missed in my short bio that you recited was the issue that I'm a founder of an organization called Women's Aid Collective and Tama Sexual Assault Referral Center. WACO was formed in 1997 and commemorated 25 years last year. And within that, last year, we took stock of all those that we have given legal aid and assistance to fight for their rights. And there were about 62,000 plus. And every year, then there was a year it used to be 4,000 plus cases. And now, luckily, that some other people are coming into the space and providing similar assistance. We are down to 1,000, and then with the COVID. But every year, if you think of the number we admit to provide legal aid, and we have lawyers set up pro bono, a legal scheme that can respond, to women who have suffered various forms of violation, and including children, not just women, because you know that access to justice is so crucial, and and within that, you can't just say access to justice without free legal aid or without assistance, because you know the cost of litigation, apart from people being litigation shy. And if you look at our environment, it's actually a tough one to work in. Nigeria particularly. I've worked around Africa. I've helped many countries in development of their constitution, for example. And I've also worked with the National Assembly here in terms of constitutional and electoral matters. But my findings is that Nigeria is such a peculiar nation. I mean, one step forward, 10 backwards. You don't make the kind of success. I can look back and say, oh, Rwanda Constitution, I was part of drafting it, and today they have transformed, and their society is where it's supposed to be. Government is running efficiently, effectively. Citizens are performing their own duties, expected roles. They are also exercising their legal right. It is not like that. And then in other parts of the world, yes, there have been progress made, definitely. Milestone recorded, but there are several barricades or roadblocks, in doing that women's work or even human rights, because it's not just women work. At the same time, I teach human rights. I'm into criminal law, criminal justice, and constitutionalism, and constitution. So it is. It's a mixed bag. Sometimes I really feel down. I feel that we have not achieved. I thought that by now, where I think Nigeria should be. I was a member of a National Political Reform Conference in 2005, and we were just talking about structure, and processes of government and reforming of public sector and making government more efficient, more accountable, more transparent, and then importantly also just actually reinforcing the constitution of Nigeria. But how many years down the line? We spent 6 months in Abuja. Then we lived, sitting every day. And we had beautiful recommendations. Those recommendations are yet to translate into tangible, policies. And that has been the bane of Nigeria, that almost every country is leaving us behind, and yet we call ourselves Giant of Africa. I recall this Giant of Africa. I visited South Africa in 1998, and I was taking some of my students to a moot court competition on human rights, and we were going to Mozambique. We transited in South Africa then, and then we had to go in on transit, and that was my first scene of South Africa. And I said, oh, then I used to have this idea about Nigeria, Giant of Africa. And after I've seen the infrastructure, I said, which giant? What is happening to? Are we now sleeping giant? So I'm really, hoping, given our population and being the largest nation, African nation, that we will come to not only claim that Giant of Africa, but in terms of even the ethics, national ethics of patriotism, of integrity, of discipline, that we will get it right,
Before we talk about perhaps governance in Nigeria, because after the politics, then we focus on governance. Those who have been elected have to now focus on delivering good governance. Something caught my attention. You said you were part of those who drafted the Rwandan constitution. And you look at Rwanda now and the success they've made with regard to gender equality. How do you think, or what parts, how were you able to draft a constitution that perhaps influenced women participation in politics? I mean, there are 61% women in parliament.
I'm actually key to it. Some of their women may not recognize me too, but those who were at that time will, because I spent 2 weeks, not just in Kigali, we went to Kibuye and we sat there, and I personally was part of writing that affirmative action clause because I worked on the category, women, children, and other minorities, because they had also some other ethnic groups and trying to ensure equality of right and balancing in governance, but it's not as pronounced. Of course, that's what led to the war anyway, and it was post-genocide, 2001. So I was part and parcel of putting that provision, and today I look back and I see the parliament, Rwanda parliament, as the best in the world. But also for the past 12, 15 years, I've also been working with the National Assembly in order to get similar provisions. I consult for them. I was part of also the one, and then the 5 key provisions that we got in. I was also I've consulted for Senate, and in this last constitutional review, I was consulting for House of Representatives. And being the only woman there, we got all these 5 provisions in. But then at the end of the day, what happened to political participation, to issue of indigeneity, to the issue of even percentage of affirmative action in governance, in party activities, and giving a woman right to not just the indigenship, how it affects women, So, but at the end of the day, we get this House passed, the Senate will not, and once you don't have concurrence, so at the end of the day, all 5 bills failed, and which is really sad, because now look at even the numbers that are coming out from the election, even though it's not completed yet. But you look at the numbers now, we are down to about 3 or 4 senators from what we used to be, and then when you think of the long period that we've had this transition to democracy since 1999 to date, you will see why the regression. Is this country at war? What happened to the women? Whereas every part of the world is improving statistically with regard to gender equality and gender indexing, indices in political, economic, social. How come that Nigeria, with this huge population, huge women that are intelligentsia, business entrepreneurs, that are successful in all spheres of life, how come that they are performing so badly? And you see the irony of it. You go also to the world stage, you see women, Nigerian women performing. I was also the first African woman special rapporteur of the UN. And I know when I completed my mandate, I got letters of recommendation from everywhere, from US, from Germany, from Switzerland, in terms of how I've performed my work. Actually, US gave me, they offered an award, the State Department award, which UN fell because of conflict of interest I couldn't take. But just to tell you that we go there at the global stage and we perform. And you can imagine the number of Nigerians. Every day they are recording successes.
But what is the problem?
But here in Nigeria, then
but what exactly is the problem? Yes, those bills failed at the National Assembly. But was that the only solution? Was that what we were banking on as the solution? Now, you find that political parties, in the build-up to these elections, in the course of preparing for the primaries, gave women, in some cases, they waived off nomination fees. In other cases, they reduced the cost of the fees. And we seemed at the time to have more women interested, and they participated in the process. But fast forward to the elections proper. Perhaps let's even say from the primary level.
They begin to wait. Exactly. Because the first past the post-primary just eliminate a lot of women. And that's where women political entrepreneurship ends. Call it that. And when you talk about those aids like waivers of expression and nomination form, it could be a double-edged sword, because sometimes when it comes to people who will step down or women not being taken seriously, they will think, oh, you paid nothing and you are the first to be asked to step aside. So I think overall we've seen, yes, we need these policies, we need affirmative action, but we always tell women where you can afford it, you buy your form, you pay for your expression of interest, you try to work through your political agenda in a deliberate manner. You plan, you budget, and you focus on it. And it's not just like, okay, they are giving women this chance, then you jump in. But again, there must be proportional representation. The time is now. Nigeria, if you look at the assessment, whether World Economic Forum, you will see Nigeria, I think, is only 8 countries that is surpassed. And those 8 countries are not where we want to be. Afghanistan, Yemen, this, that. These are not the countries that we want to be competing with Iran, because that haven't moved an inch when it comes to gender equality.
I think this is a legislative problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
It
so
is.
Are you sort of hopeful that with this diversity in the National Assembly, where it doesn't look like one political party can take all the decisions, can take final decisions, are you sort of hopeful that this assembly would sort of address this issue if consultants like yourself and civil society organizations mount pressure and come up with bills that would perhaps suggest or support the argument for women to, gain equity, not equality in this case?
I think the primary problem, there are root causes that we haven't addressed. Politics have become the easiest and the quickest means for making money. Then it has become do or die affair. And so and that's where the argument, when we talk of proportional, that bill was going to add 111 women in the parliament, and there will be women special constituency. And men start saying, oh, it's not going to be my constituency. Why women, they will come and take our space, and they will come. So it has become an easier. So it has to be the incentive. We need to really reduce all of those pegs. If possible, make legislative work part-time. It's only in our own environment that you have people, probably this will start to change now, that people who are not passionate about anything find themselves in National Assembly. And they just move. They just move for their own personal interest. They represent no one and no interest. You can't see them say, oh, I know this legislator parliamentarian for health issues. Or this one, I know him or her for women issues. I know this one for taking up the interest of, even if Keke Napep. So when they say bus drivers, Keke Napep, they are all a motorcycle, I say that's good. That's good for the parliament. Let them come. If it's the interest of the common people, let them represent. We need that. Diversity as well. We need the diversity, we need the inclusion, and we need the equity. So it is important. It's just that is the misnomer. That is where we got it wrong. And that same drive is only in Nigeria. People spend a lot of money. Yes, people spend money in politics and campaign. But when you think of campaign financing, we don't have a handle on it. People just spend anything to get into power, and they recruit. So it's become mercantile politics. And with that type of policy, it doesn't admit of proportionality. It doesn't admit of the people they consider the weak. So you have to just fight your way, and get it and grab it, and for your self-aggrandizement, not for public good. And this is a serious problem. And probably when, even like some of us that fought the military, that I was part of Women in Nigeria, and we did all we did. I think we left that space so quickly as civil society. And we left that space, and people who came to fill in, that were not even in the struggle, some of them are not thinking of the best interest of Nigeria. And they don't legislate for the best interest of Nigeria. If they are making any law, they think first of their interest. Because when people ask and look at the world's largest democracy, like India, which in the course of also my working with the National Assembly, we have had to travel with the senators to India in 2014. And we went to the Indian equivalent of Independent National Electoral Commission in Nigeria. You won't believe it. It's not any magnificent building. It could have passed for one of the state INEC for a country with 800 million voters. And there were only 3 commissioners. And they demonstrated to us the electronic voting machine. And mind you, in 2005, and anyone in the National Political Reform Conference will tell you that we had a demonstration of electronic voting machine in 2005. So this conversation has been on. Why are we so different? And in India, very simple, in 2014, they told us the entire thing cost, and theirs is even far better than even what we used. Because as your voting is comparing, is confirming, there is no counting, physical counting and everything. And our people were there asking, how do people contest? Do people go to court after this to contest this election? They say it's 0.00 this. Almost nothing. And sometimes it takes them 1 month to organize the election around the world. They have everything we have. Interior area, impassable, places they have to use camel to get to. And they go there and drop election materials. It wouldn't occur to anyone to tamper with it. It's about discipline. We are yet to have that culture of democracy. We are yet, I don't know, we have fundamental problem, and unfortunately, we are just passing this on to next generation.
Is it the individuals or the institutions now?
Both now at individual level, at institutional level, leadership level, followership level, we've all got problems. Because if the demand side is not strong, then the supply side is what you get. It's just now people are beginning to wake up. For the first time, this might just go in as one of the elections where there's a shake-up and people are beginning to think of service. But why should we be talking about that? You can't use our commonwealth to intimidate us, use our commonwealth and fritter it away and bring hardship to us, and people are not exercising their legal right, mediating their differences, using their differences as a political resource, and then, and just, what is democracy about? It's about people. And our constitution says sovereignty resides in the people. And through that, government derives its authority. Do you think they derive the authority from citizen, you and me? Because if they do, they should be responsive. And that's why what defines any leader. You must have character. You must visionary character and responsive. You can have a democracy and have leaders who are not responsive. People are passing through hell, hardship that will have brought government down in so many countries, and they just treat it with levity. I don't know how we arrive at this level. Sometime I said if I were younger, I would dust my feet and leave, because you have one life to live, and you must live it in peace and peaceful enjoyment of that life. Because we have recently, I don't know why many people are not even mad or mental or full-blown, because the kind of what we take in this nation, there is no place on earth where they can endure what Nigerians endure.
So this is the people.
The
people have failed.
And people have become also complacent. They have become complacent. They've resigned their fate. We're not talking about accountability anymore. We are not demanding people are beginning, you can even see people threatening you. If you don't do this, no development in your area. With which money? Whose taxpayers' money? When the taxpayer is the one who will tell you, it's our money. And people use government money and pretend they are doing good to you.
But we tie this now, based on what you've said, to the institutions. The institutions appear weak, and we find politicians who override these institutions. And so you find that if institutions that are supposed to take action become subservient to the people they're supposed to take action against. So how do we strengthen these institutions? Institutions
are weak, and it's also part of recruitment process. Look at public sector, for example, and you're supposed to have, the governance, you talk about productivity, you talk about, ability, people with capacity, institutions that are strengthened, and you don't find that. ordinary a public servant might just produce this letter that may take somebody 1 minute. They may take them 2 days before they get it out, because it will ask another person, you're sitting there as a director, type this for me. And then that other person asks another one, oh, the typewriter is not working. Oh, there is no electricity. Is that letter ready? Is that memo ready?
You know that level of incompetence is largely influenced by the political class.
Sure.
So at what sort of politicians should we be aiming for in such a way that we know that these ones have the interest of the country at heart and they will only hire person? Because whether we like it or not, the power to hire and fire lies largely with the political class.
Exactly, and the executive. And the issue is that because ethnicity, unfortunately, impacts on our democracy so much, ethnicity, religious, all those things they mention in our constitution, that in composition of government, we should make sure that is balanced, that there is no one ethnic group or dominating. People misuse it. Misuse quota, misuse issue of merit, and then we end up with nepotism. We end up with people who are directors or somebody who is in charge of office who cannot even make one correct sentence, who cannot even present a memo anywhere in the world, who cannot even hold their own, and who will, for every information, and these are the people that will go for information, and they will tell you, oh, I will write this letter, and you write a letter even 6 months down the line. That letter, you won't see the approval. You won't see the statistics coming out. Which nation? So how are we going to get there?
It's such a dilemma because we've seen cases where certain politicians who want to do the right thing get into position and realize that a lot of unqualified people occupy that position, and then they try to fire, and then resistance.
Yeah, but I think if you have dialogue, because now it just turns out that the government is the largest employer of labor, and it shouldn't be. And that's why when you look at our youth, you're educated, you're a graduate, even though these days have baked, and you don't have a job. And then, the problem is an elephant. I worked as the UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking worldwide. There is no one country I visited I did not see Nigerians in irregular migration situation and in detention all over the world. And some of them, you said, oh, why are you still here 3 years? I recall one I met in Australia. And, I will talk to the government, you can just come back. He said, no, what am I coming back to do? And I said, oh, so you prefer that you're here? And where they put them in detention is far away from the city, is in one secluded area. And you've been living like that even though they have food. And he said, no, I'll fight. What am I going to come back to Nigeria to do? The same way you find women who are trafficked. When I did a mission to Italy in 2013, in one Italian city, there were 3,000 Nigerian girls on forced prostitution on the street, Turin. And 7 have been murdered that year for even trying to escape their traffickers. When I got to the detention center, it was like a Nigerian thing. And once they found out that I was a Nigerian, you can see them screaming, they want to send me home. What do they want me to do? To be armed robber, to be trafficker, to be terrorist. And you see, every day, every week, they load a plane load of plane. You don't know these things. They return them from all parts of Europe. They put them and they bring them to Lagos. And then they will put them in the bus. They try to document them. In the middle of Lagos, they will drop them again. They will come back again. They will start the journey from all over through the Sahel. You see the desperation of our youths. And they are women. And then we are not addressing the root causes. Youth unemployment, inequalities, social exclusion, violence, people escaping violence, conflict. So how?
I know you're dissatisfied with the process of the elections. I would want you to expand on that, but before then, based on what you've just said, it clearly suggests that the next president of this country, the president-elect as it stands now, has a lot of work to do to address these problems.
Yes, and there must be someone who appreciates the multi-dimensional problem that Nigeria has. Because I recall when I was a UN Special Rapporteur, I did everything to even get the authorities in power to understand how this gives us bad name. In fact, there is I sit in Brussels, and then you have a lot of countries from Europe. I'm in the EU meeting. Everybody will be pointing Nigeria. I once went to a meeting of Frontex in Poland, Warsaw, and before they realized I was a Nigerian, and they started apologizing. But because they said, oh, but Nigeria is where we're getting all the problems. And that's why. And I try to get to our government. This is a problem. How do you tackle this problem? How do you really address the root causes? At times, the average Nigerian is very hardworking, even our youth. It's just the enabling environment is so. I've talked to young people who say, even when they start business, today the tax people will come, FIRS will come, this one will come, this local government will come. They don't encourage them. They will keep taxing, multiple taxation, and you get nothing for the taxes you pay. I mean, so where in the world? Just look at our airport sitting in FCT. You enter the airport, no designed parking lot that is a commonplace in all over the world, and yet you enter, you pay toll gate, you park, you pay toll gate. Within an hour, where does it work? Where in the world do you have all of that?
You know, I think this is where it's important to get technocrats in positions. Following the elections that have been concluded, we have quite a number of technocrats who try to get into the space, but clearly it's not an easy process. The system doesn't favor. But how do we address this once and for all?
I think it requires we should move away for now from winner takes all. There is need for not just unity government. A government that will be made up of is no longer you say this party won and this party should just constitute government. No. There should be deliberate effort to include other people and key people. It's only in Nigeria that you can hardly. I've sat down, I think, one time in 2004, I got a call from 2005 from, he said, Mary Robinson. I said, wow, calling me. I even thought I said this 419, and he had like a male voice. I said, no. He said, I want to put you in African, this. And we are going in Aspen. I've got good recommendation, about you. That same way, I've not lobbied for any position I got at the UN and at global level. But we've done all of those work around the world appreciated. In Nigeria, nobody, unless you have your godfather there, will go and read up and see, okay, I think for this, we need this person. We can have the right, round peg in round for where? Not in Nigeria. And that is why we are where we are. You think of people you would do business with, corruption, the hydra-headed problem that we have, and you're not thinking of, how do I make this country one that one can be proud of? You go and read about people like Dubai and the Sheikh who made it. What was it a few years, 2 decades ago? And it's someone's dream and vision. I want to have a country I can be proud of. I want to have a country that if I walk in, I was just in Addis for the AU meeting the other day, and I say, Addis Ababa, I've been going there for the past 3 decades. Look at the way it's looking nice every day. And it's having city center. I said, what's going on? Every country is developing around that. And in Nigeria, you find the FCT dwindling. I often say, whether people may not like him or not, but the last minister of FCT we had was actually El-Rufai. People may not like his politics or his day, but he was efficient, he was effective, and he restored the beauty of the city. Since then, we have not added anything. We've actually, it's become, in fact, Lagos, I've seen that Lagos is even developing, becoming much better than the federal capital that is true. And here people are trooping, the thing is becoming squalor. You go open defecation in a capital city, where in the world, and you see cow. I saw some walking around, I was passing through Zone 5, a riot of cattle. Where in the world? Is this an animal farm? We have to wake up.
Are you hopeful? I think the process of making change begins with the elections, getting the right people in the right positions.
Yeah.
Our elections have come and gone now.
Yeah.
So the concern for many is, have we got it right? From your assessment, do you conclude, or are you hopeful that we have gotten it right?
We've not gotten it right. But then people can say, okay, this can be, there is something that has happened with this election that tells me it can never be business as usual again for Nigeria and politicians. I can feel it. The way they've all been campaigning now, just because one man came on who did something differently, who people wanted because of his consistency. And it wasn't about pretense, because he has lived his life, even as a public officer like that, without all this paraphernalia of simplicity, conserving money for the government, thinking your government first before your own self-interest. And that resonated with a lot of Nigerians. It resonated. So, and now people are becoming conscious that at the end of the day, and some have also fallen in their bid, that at the end of the day, People want service, and people recognize those who have served them, and people recognize those who have worked for them, and they will always coalesce around them. You can have that phenomenon in Kano because they believe you worked for them, and in other places you can. So I think that's one of the few lessons learned for politicians. But again, my fear is that we have short memory, including the political class. Immediately they start legislating again. Immediately they go back to the executive position. It will become, if the demand side and the momentum is not maintained and the accountability stake is not raised, have to raise the bar. They will go back again. They will sleep again. Because we have not conscientiously demanded for our right and demanded for what is due to us as citizens of Nigeria, and making sure that our legitimate expectations are met, because government is for us. And then we don't know whether we are running a police state or state, and people talk and you see people hunting them as opposed to addressing the problem that is the issue. You see? So the orientation is really very skewed. And when people talk about, I think, tell me in any part of Nigeria where they don't have poverty, where people are not suffering it, that there is no water, sanitation. Every part of Nigeria is the same problem. So we need to take these things seriously, from federal to state to local government. In fact, even the local government election, I've been saying it long ago, is one of the most important elections. And sometimes people don't pay attention. States have hijacked it, and they put in their stooges, and you don't have, that's where you're supposed to have really people with the experience and who can come in and change things and start reformation and making sure that it works for the people at that level. But they are not taken seriously. At state level, what happens? States appropriate their money, and local government will just be there existing and sharing, and nobody lives there, and no development, and no rural development.
You know, your concern about the short memory, as you put it, of politicians is very important, because momentum is another thing. 4 years is a long time to wait.
Exactly.
And as you said, it's necessary for politicians to be aware that adjustments have come to stay, for that matter. But then the question is, for the average Nigerian who has participated in this process and perhaps has seen how it's turned out and maybe wants to go back to whatever it is that they were doing before, how can such a person put politicians on their toes within 4 years of them being in office?
It's demanding for accountability, and at all levels, because sometimes people just look at federal level and they forget about their state assembly, where budgets are made, where the resources are diverted, where they are mismanaged. They have to start at all levels, because, and we have to be consistent. And this issue that even some people will, people, I know there are people who are already despondent. For some, they just think that they will not even vote again. But I said, no, that's not the answer. The answer is that you have to use your vote, and use your vote wisely. And one day your vote will count, and it's beginning to count. And it will change. But the issue is that the deep corruption doesn't allow those in management of affairs of Nigeria to think in the best interest of Nigeria. If you go to research and go to India, there was no question we didn't pose to them then in 2014. We said, okay, this is your 3 system. They said they had another third one, which was verification. And they showed us all those machines cost, everything was $200. And they were all made in India. And we asked them, and they have long political parties. You put it, you punch, immediately, they don't do discounting. So we asked them all kinds of questions. And they said, no, the battery, does it fail? They said, no, it's long life battery, and it lasts for a cycle of election, and is made in India. What do we produce? We have to move away from consumption to that productivity, because that's a major problem. That's why I tell people, just think of, I use South Africa, because I go there a lot. And from 1998 to date, 1998, the rand was 9 rand to $1. And I know this because we missed our connection thanks to Ghana Airways, and they had to buy us another ticket to meet others and join them in Mozambique. It was 9 rand to $1. I went this year, last month, February, it's about 16 rands to $1. And over the last 20 years, it's always hovering between that. This is what you call an economy. Can you go back in time to Nigeria? Just go back 5 years ago. What was Naira and the free fall of Naira? And the fact that the mono economy, everybody will come, we diversify, we do agriculture, the same problem at the end of the day, you measure the same. That means that something is wrong. And we have not been able to address the fundamental problem.
You know, some say that what could be wrong is the issue of ethnicity and religion.
It is part
that
of
it is inhibition to our political growth and governance, which is some of the reasons why.
But are we the only one? Think of India. Don't they have 3 types?
So how has India been able to manage and grow beyond that?
They have Hindus. The thing is, start respecting even your constitution. Sometimes even the legal framework is not respected. Even our legal framework, you go to section 14.3, go to section 4. He said, no, you had to put composition of government. By now, we should be having what you call Equality Commission, Equal Opportunity Commission. You know, but that's not it. You have government, someone can blatantly discriminate against a whole people and nobody talks. And then field in anybody from the ethnic and it's over. That is in outright disobedience to constitution. But who are the persons? The first set of persons to demand accountability is our elected legislator, who are supposed to call and say, this is unconstitutional. We are, Mr. President or Mr. Governor or Madam Governor, we are filing for impeachment on this ground for serious violation and breach of constitution. Do we have that type of parliament? Parliament that governors will pocket, presidents will pocket, or even without presidents even pocketing, they will look to find out what they are thinking, even before they speak. And people will go and say, this person looks like he's challenging you. Maybe you want to run for this. I mean, we should just, all those primordial divisions that have kept us down. We should think of a great nation, a country we can all come back to and be proud of. I recall when Cross River was at its peak during Donald Duke. I tell you, there were some Igbos who returned from US, they went straight to Cross River. They spent their Christmas, they enjoyed everything. It was already like Brazilian, what is it called? That, kind of. And we used to go to that Budu Ranch. What has happened today? One would think that 20 years or how many years after that Duke made that visionary thing to lift up the state, and what would have lifted them out of poverty? At times I weep for this, my country. Then you have people successively that have destroyed everything. And the people have not taken them on. Something is wrong with us. Definitely.
Let's talk about human rights now. You've worked so well with international organizations, even the United Nations, on human rights. And I'd like to find out what your findings are with regards to human rights violations in Nigeria in comparison to what obtained during the military era and why we've been unable to sort of improve in a democracy.
Yeah, it's actually funny. When I was doing some analysis, I found out that all the major international human rights instruments were ratified under military era, including the UN International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights, the UN Convention on the Rights of on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the African Charter's Protocol on Human Rights, all of them. And actually, even the African Charter was domesticated into a local law under military era. And then since our democracy, even to get one international instrument like even the UN, the Convention on Elimination of CEDAW, is a problem. To have even gender equality, and yet the government have ratified it since 1985. 85 was under military rule. The Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and all the ministries were created under military rule. And then in democracy, one expected more efficiency, expected even observance of those international treaties, transformation and translation of them into, and then we're not having those gains. And it's a legitimate expectation of the people. Is it a military that normally suspend constitution that now are ratifying all these human rights documents? And then was it still on that military that we had National Human Rights Commission? And even got to the Paris A? Yes. So, and today, I mean, even though it's there, it still have status A under the, but still, we are not where we're supposed to in terms of funding it. Even with the NATIP that I work closely with as the UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking, you still see that they don't have the budget to do the work, and the work is enormous. You think that government is not even addressing the root causes, which is job. How many states have job creation, job centers where they register their people, find them appropriate job, even give them startups or help them to find private sector, because it mustn't be government. But the issue is that the basic enabling environment, electricity, things, if you start to run your individual business today, if you don't calculate well, you will run bankrupt. If you ever make mistake of borrowing money from the bank, you will never come out of it, except there is something else you're doing that is not legitimate, because everything is way up.
When you talk about the National Human Rights Commission, which was created under the military era, and you look at the fact that it is funded by government, it's all bark, no bite, isn't it?
It's not. They have a peculiar status, and they have enabling law. So they are supposed to be kind of bridge between the government and the people. And that's why they get direct funding, not that government controls. So they have direct...
But if you look at the statistics, how impactful has the National Human Rights Commission? I can almost bet that the Nigerians who are watching this program right now would question what kind of interface they have with the National Human Rights Commission with regard to the violation of their rights by governments.
I think they have done well. Because of that peculiar position they have, that they could write any MDA and question them, and they will respond more than maybe even an NGO will write. So because they know they have that mandate, and I think over the years, particularly in the last few years, I've seen a lot of improvement, because remember, even the military investigation they had, even recently, I think the army even went there themselves and called them with regard to allegation made by some other external body, I don't know whether it was Amnesty International, and said they should investigate this. So you can see that they are beginning to bite, but we need more, because the problem is not even just National Human Rights Commission in that context. Think of even other bodies set up by African Union, even the African Commission on Human Rights or the court. They make recommendation, they ask the government to, they give decision, government don't observe. Look at the ECOWAS court. How many judgments have they delivered, even on human rights awards against Nigeria? They have not observed any. They have not implemented any. So this National Human Rights have a quasi-judicial body. They are doing a lot on their own, especially in the area of human rights, as women and other vulnerable groups. People are responding. They may not maybe be advertising the way they should, but sometimes you see they do one step depending, and budget is everything. And this issue of funding, and if you don't have that independence, in terms of the funding, it creates a lot of problem. But for me, I think they are doing well, but we have to keep demanding that they do better, isn't it? I think that's the important thing. And at times that people know, because if people are not aware of their mandate and what they can do, at least now they are in every state. If people are not aware, then they don't take advantage of them. And it is for them to mount that kind of campaign, awareness, education, so that people can know, okay, I can think now they have hotline, but I don't know, I haven't tested. Because, people can call you at every level. And that you can also go if they say it's the police. But I think, let me tell you, we need a serious orientation. I was listening over the news. I don't know whether it was Channel I had it. And they said, journalists were there to see the sensitive material being distributed in KB. And someone was saying from security sector, we don't order from above. We don't have any clearance for that. You're not going to do that. We should be able to get security personnel that understand their roles and function and rights of citizens and their work, so that they don't even they cannot be the ones who are roadblock to that. They can constitute themselves barrier to realization of that. So do we have those kind of security personnel who will know their rights, who know their code of conduct, and who knows that it is right? The journalists, they should be able to see this thing. And you can't just send them away by wave of hand and say order from above. And that's what you get in Nigerian palace. That is becoming increasingly irritating. That people say order from above. Which above? You should be able to know your work, because you will be held accountable. If you kill anybody, it's you personally that will be responsible. And you should be able to know your right. And they have code of conduct. So they train them to be able to assert. Somebody you can't be on a duty and be telling somebody, I'm waiting for order from above. I'm asked not to release. When you know, what did they recite to them? What did they give them? What standard? What protocol? So we have a lot of work to strengthen institutions, because now what we have is, individuals, powerful, personalized powers, and instead of institution being strong that can now withstand any individual, even if you're not very competent. But then you have the reverse. And everything revolves around one person with power, privatization of power, personalization of power. And then others follow like zombies. And it shouldn't be so.
Let me take you quickly back to the elections as we round off now. I had a conversation with Dr. Ezekwesili, who said that you're very familiar with her, by the way.
Yeah.
She's working on a fixed politics program, and the idea of that is to breed a new crop of politicians who understand what it means to do politics. In one of the conversations I had with her, she says that this election suggests that there is a strong appetite that the youths want change.
Sure.
Now the elections are over. Now the concern now is whether change has been achieved. In your understanding of what the country needs, are you confident in the ability of the president-elect to address some of the issues, or most of the issues bedeviling this country, especially considering the level of disunity across the country, the dwindling economy, and perhaps the high cost of living in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Because she also did say that it's almost impossible for the next president of Nigeria to, within 4 years, make the kind of change that is expected of him.
I completely agree. For me, I said Nigeria need 20 years of sincere visionary leadership, workaholics, people who have the experience and who are committed for us to see the kind of change we want. At least 16 years. Definitely not 4 years. And, it's really sad because things have gone so bad. Is it the economy? Is this how you're going to fix all those things? Even in the university that we are in? Are we not the one that went on strike for how long and came out even at 8-7 salary? People are even battling, and the state salary may be even difficult to pay, even at federal level, with the way the economy is going. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And we have that commitment. That's why I said, if we don't get technocrats in, and if we think it's winner takes all, and I can even see some come out on TV and say, please don't form national unity government. Just is winner take all. You have won. You're president-elect. Do whatever you like. I just said, these people, something is definitely wrong. They don't even understand the kind of problem that you have to get all hands and competent hands. And then it cannot be business as usual. We need disciplined leaders that will show leadership by example. We need very hard-working, strong, not strong enough, but the leaders who have that, who are hard-working and are able to deliver. Because Nigeria problem, anybody who is a leader should not be sleeping. You can't sleep more than 4 hours, But then we must keep hope alive, because without hope, then we are finished. Enthusiasm is what drives the world. So I can see the youths, I'll tell them, please keep that hope alive. Let us channel that energy to demanding accountability, to demanding for our legal right, to really navigating those challenges that keep us down and coming up with solutions. I think is important. Don't give up, please.
Just as we round off, let's talk quickly about your Wako project and what you've been able to achieve with that, and perhaps prepare the next generation of Nigerian women for participation in not only politics but governance.
Yeah, thank you. I think before WACO, I was also in another membership organization, and WACO was formed in 1997. He's now 26 years old. Within this year, I always take delight, and that's why I said people have to be passionate about what they do, that my first building was a shelter for battered women in 2002. And I recall my late husband got land as a doctor that was donated by the community. And they said, okay, 1 plot, and he sold one. I said, please, can you give me this one? And I rallied support, and I built it. And it was a ultra-modern edifice that could take women. And then I run legal aid, free legal aid to women and children And we sustained that over the years. And different program, capacity building, strengthening administrators of justice, police, prosecutors, judges, so that they can have the capacity to do gender justice. And then also to ensure enforcement of human rights. And over the years, when we started, I just said women focused, and all the 99% of employees were women, because I believe in building capacity of women and next generation of women so that they can be women leaders and they can be female, exemplary female transformational leaders. And I look around and I look back and I see them in different positions around the world, and it gives me joy. Our work is not done, but I'm glad about where we are, that thousands of people have benefited. During COVID time, I said, oh, let me run this hotline. We were just, for example, for one who always travel all over the place, and I found myself just sitting down there in Enugu. I said, I would run it. And I was very active. I never had a siesta throughout COVID. People would not believe, because I was very busy. Helping people, working to improve my community, making a difference in people's life. And that's what life is about.
Absolutely. Professor Joy Ezilo, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's interesting how 1 hour flies by really fast.
Really, really fast.
But thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. And good luck with the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, that's Political Paradigm. Thank you very much. I've been speaking with Professor Joy Ezilo. She's a senior advocate of Nigeria, a very rich biography. If you would like to hear more about her biography, watch this program again. Simply go to YouTube and search Political Paradigm, or go to channelstv.com. Thank you for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.